Hi, I'm Mick Wall and I'm here with Francis Rossi from Status Quo, here in his home studio, and we're going to be talking about a career that now spans an astonishing 75 hit singles. 75 hit singles. I mean, that's a bit greedy, isn't it?
You've got all posh, haven't you? You've got all professional now. It's all on and working. It's not like this since off camera, honestly, it's not.
I mean, going right back to the very first hit single.
I'd long been married, and I wrote that song, and I was trying to write a song like Hey Joe, which I heard the other day. It's nothing like it, is it?
Not really,
I
no.
was a tree at the time, I must have been. And my ex-wife and her mother had gone out, so I thought, yes. So I was in the loungy piece, in the prefect, you know, this old prefect, and I said, let's go and write this thing, and I was trying to write this tune, and they came back, so I went back in the toilet, and it's like that. So there's this famous story about writing in the toilet, and I'd got the whole thing going. I was doing it in falsetto. Well, I look up to the sky. I thought, it's really weird, man, you know. We used to say man a lot because it made you feel cool. Like, you know, I sang it all like that. And my ex-wife came home and I was stuck. And I said, it says picture. She had pictures of matchstick men, and I took it on from there. You're not getting anything, don't try. And I'll have a joke, don't you? And when we went to the studio, then John Schroeder said, why don't you try singing it in natural voice? We sang it in natural voice, and then I also had this da-da-da-da-da-da, which to me sounded a bit twee on one string, and so I tuned the top E down to a B, and you leave it sharp, slightly sharp or flat, as long as it's one or the other. If it's bang in tune, it doesn't work. And so that you get that nice res and that ring that happens when things are slightly out of tune, which is why double tracking's nice. And you play the two strings together, and it makes that noise of Matchstick Men. And
suddenly you've got a big hit single.
Plus our engineer at the time, Alan Florence, who now works for ITN, he came up with this idea of doing a bit of phasing, I think. And the phasing at the time, you would have two 2-inch, quarter-inch machines running, with the two masters mixes on there, a third one running, then you bring in one which drops the power on one. A huge, great machine with a voltage dropper to hit the voltage. And that's what, as they sit and move and cross over, they're saying you've got the real phasing. You can't get it like that.
You see, that's a technical aspect to a song that most people, when they heard, just thought were the drugs kicking in, you know, back in '68.
Oh, wasn't it? I don't know. I didn't know what they were. You're joking. I had no idea. The idea when everyone said it was psychedelic as well, I thought, good, it's psychedelic, right, good. Is that good? I don't know. Is it good? Keep your head down. Yeah.
The status quo that we know now clearly wasn't the status quo that
no, it wasn't.
Pictures of Matchstick Men. But within 3 years, 2 or 3 years, suddenly we've got a group with the same name, but essentially completely different thing, different look, different sound, the sort of sound that we now recognise.
Yeah, but you say 3 years to now, it's like, it's only 3 years. At the time, that 3 years seemed, it was like, and the good thing about it was it's like us against the world, and it was, don't keep right on to the end. We were like, we're going to do this together. It was that unit. It was lovely. So you were always fighting against it. We kind of went back to similar to where we were in terms of that kind of rock thing. I remember thinking about Little Richard, and from Little Richard, it's the energy that those kind of guys used to put into rock and roll that still fascinates me now.
Well, let's move it on then to, I think the first record that everybody will remember as being, as it were, the status quo we now think of, was Paper Plane.
Mm.
It's got that lovely boogie.
Yeah. It could have been... I thought In My Chair was the way we were going. We'd done Tune to the Music, which I remember writing in Ireland, and then In My Chair, Bob and I wrote In My Chair. And I thought that was the one that was going. I thought that... there was a moodiness about that I liked. However, as you said, the Paper Plane came not long after that, and Paper Plane started to have some of that energy. And that's when we had to stop partaking of illegal substances before we went on, because it was okay when you were trying to get these people who were sat on the floor ignoring you. We'd drop our heads down, because the hair would cover the lovely, haven't got to worry about people. And we'd be standing next to each other, and away we'd go, and it'd build up. And then... when the advent of Matchstick Men or all those kind of hits, then realising that the audience became more intense. Oh, shit. Once they suddenly want to know, oops, they're watching. Whereas we were used to basically, as I said, people sitting on the floor, I can't stand this bleeding up, that sort of thing going on. And then that was the challenge, so I said, we'll get you, you bastard. And we'd work on it. So some of that came through. And then as I said, going after that and to walk in somewhere like Hammersmith and Christ, they're already there. So, and we'd have a spliff perhaps before we went on, so it was like, yeah, this is mine. And I'd go up to the mic, hello. I thought, no, I can't do this anymore, can I? I can't smoke. No, too late now. Start. So that was all good for us, a good learning curve for us to say that you have to be committed on that stage. Or say at Stateless Crow works, it's committed in as much as I said that physical thing's it's nodding off.
I was going to say, I think that one of the important things about whether it's In My Chair or Paper Plane or going forward to Caroline is this incredible songwriting partnership that you now suddenly become involved in with Bob Young. Bob, who's not a member of the band, but is part of the band. Can you explain that to us?
He was very instrumental in a lot of that early career, in as much as when we were changing managers and we had to tell Pat Barlow that was very difficult. Because he, again, like a dad, it was... first show we did, I'm 12 years old, a guy, or 12 or 13, just 13, comes up and said, I want to manage you. Fine, so I had nothing to worry about after that. We never had... And what was the question?
Bob Young.
Oh, yeah. And so Bob was very much, when he was given to us as a what they call a roadie, we started to... He was just a great man. He still is a great man. He's got that friend of the people. We used to call him friend of the people. And we all started to write with him on and off, but I think him and I really struck it off. Plus we had hits. It's always going to...
but also I think...
I don't see... You say this great songwriting... Well, for me and Bob it's great, but I still have that thing that we just write those... what people call 3-chord tricks, 4-chord, 5-chord tricks in that basic format that we do. I think some of them are great, but not when you compare it to what I call real songs. So I don't go there thinking, I'm this songwriter. I happen to have been very, very lucky with Status Quo. We all have. Very, very lucky.
With Bob, though, I think you've told me in the past, one of the things you enjoyed about working with him was the fact that because he wasn't in the band... you were able to explore... Caroline, for instance, I think you once told me, started out as a country flavour song.
Yeah, as a country flavour, there was a shuffle, and it's just how you do tunes, you know, if you're writing songs. It's very easy to have a tune that could be in a country swing. You can suddenly do, like, the Paper Plane. You could do Paper Plane in the very sort of... jingy.
Well, that's the mark of a classic song, isn't it? Being able to do something... in more than one style.
You're not going to put this down until I say it's a classic song.
They're classic songs, Francis. Caroline is one of the all-time great classic songs. And straight after we talk about Paper Plane and Caroline, which were the two big breakthrough songs for you, here comes Down Down. First #1 record, and to this day, you know, what pub jukebox in the world is complete without Down Down?
But that was #1 for minutes. It was not. It was 1 week. I think it was fine. And the thing I was explaining to this person yesterday, and when we were doing these lyrics for this thing, and people got an idea they can do lyrics and stuff, and you look at it, and reading it's one thing, singing it's another, and making it sound good on a melody or a rock and roll pop melody, whatever it is. And that's where we were explaining. So we wrote this lovely song. I want all the world to see you laughing, and you're laughing at me. I can take it all from you again, and. Let's do the next verse. Okay, we went to the next verse. We got all 3 verses. This track was done. We recorded. We knew it had to be duh, and I kept thinking of dabbery band, dabbery duh. All he was going duh, duh, duh. He made a noise. Mark just made a noise. Dabbery band. I love that. You see, duh, duh. And he said, "Well, down, down then." Bang off. What does it mean? He said, no, it can't mean anything, does it? I said, no.
You say it doesn't mean anything, but again, you see, you're being far too modest because I remember you telling me that actually some of the lyrics...
yeah, the verse.
The verse.
That's different.
Let's hear about the verse.
The verse is, I figure, I'm half talking to my ex-wife and the press at the time, you know, I can take it all from you again and again, and I want the world to see you laughing. And the people have always laughed at Status Quo, that's how it is. I understand that, but then you have to understand that most acts. Like I've said to you before, if you're at the time the biggest act on the planet, perhaps was Mickey Jacknall. What's his name? Michael Jinjins.
Michael Jackson.
Thank you very much. He and let's say on Thriller he did about 45 million albums around the world.
Right.
Around the world. Well, if he'd done 45 million albums in America, it would still mean that roughly 220 million people didn't buy it. Oh. Now that's the reality of it all. If you sell the biggest albums in this country, I think Oasis may have done it once, and Beatles did it a few times. It's about 3 million. You mean 57 million people didn't like it? That's what you mean?
Well, there are songs, and there are how many they sell, and then there are songs that we might not all buy, but we all remember, and they all take us back to very important times in our lives. And I can think of one straight away, Rocking All Over the World, which, of course, neither you nor Rick or Bob or anybody else in the band wrote.
No. Rick found it, yeah.
But is, in fact, despite the fact that you didn't write this song, is now absolutely one of the all-time great Status Quo songs. Would you agree?
Yeah, that I could see it. I think that's quite good, that one.
I mean, that's
But I can never understand how this whole, you know, that people have this thing about rock and what's hip and what's not cool and what, blah, blah, blah. But what apparently is okay is giddy up, and here we go. I don't, and a la 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 la. Apparently that's all right. But so I never understand that. Oh, that's cool, but that other one there's not, you know. And the C sharp or the C that's in that song is in that song.
Well, we'll never get what's cool.
I love all that
because that changes too much to keep up with. But Rocking All Over the World, I mean, the song came out in '77.
He's going to cut that out, isn't he? Yeah.
The song came out in 1977, and here we are over 30 years later. And you know there are
it's a great
small children that know and love that song, old age pensioners that know and love that song, and the rest of us in the middle who know and love that song. I mean, how many of those do you come across in your lifetime as an artist?
Not many, no. And we have been very. I said to you, we have been very lucky. I'm not denying that. And the fact, you know, Rick when he used to travel, he used to live in Woking. He travelled on the A3. He was giving people a lift, you know. And in those days, you could. And he was going home one night, and he just heard it on the radio. He heard it, and he thought he brought it in, and we listened to it. Be all right. We'll do it at the end of the day. I think it was the last track on Rocking All Over the World. We said, we're going to do this track. And, and if you listen to Thingy's version, you think, well, we can do that. And we did what we did with it, and it worked. And again, if you ask Pip Williams, the producer, he would love to remix that, because it was done on Auratones. It was the thing to do then. It was the cool thing. Everyone was mixing on Auratones, which is a little 4-inch speaker, really, with no... It's just...
So it would sound good on the radio, presumably?
Well, it's what everyone was doing.
Right.
And plus all the studios, we'd had this thing in studios where there were all these Thomas Hidley rooms to make some sort of uniformity in control rooms, because you'd go from one control room into another studio, and you'd commit suicide, because what have you done to our record? It's just a different room. And so this guy designed all these rooms to be compatible. And the same thing happened with that, so everyone was mixing it all the time. So you could be in a marquee in London and go to Los Angeles and it sounded exactly the same.
Right.
But you go 20 years forward, that record is that big. So lots of people like to remix and all that kind of stuff. Sorry.
Speaking of all-time famous Status Quo songs, again, I mean, similar to Rocking All Over the World, similar to Down, Down. You know, there's another song which I think everybody immediately, whether they like Quo, have heard of Quo, they know and love this song, and that's Whatever You Want.
Oh, yeah, that's class.
Now, that is a song...
To me, that's class, yeah.
That took on a complete life of its own, didn't it?
It was very clever, I think. There was a Hale and Pace, they usually did this show, and they did this skit one night of various songs of ours, and that one they did as almost in an operatic style, and you... Oh, of course. That's exactly what suits it. The da-da-da-da-dum. If you pump that up, it's really operatic. Da-da-da-da-dum. Or in the classical style. And that's it's funny that we all, like I said, with music, we all say, oh, no, it couldn't be. Well, it's the same bloody music in Tchaikovsky's thing as it is in whatever. And that was the fascinating thing to me, how he got something as simple as that. Da-da-da-da-da. Bastard. Why do I find that?
Do you mean Rick?
That was Andrew and Rick, yeah.
Oh, yeah, right.
And Rick got the intro piece, that's one of Rick's intros. But it was that... How do you do that? He's a gobshite, that Andrew. But beautiful, brilliant track, and it's extremely, extremely popular. People just love it. It's a great thing as well, whatever you want. Damn. He's like those country writers to me. They always come up with some line that the rest of us didn't think of.
But it sounds as if you've heard it.
Yes, it was a great phrase, whatever
you
want. Yeah, whatever you like. Whatever you say, whatever you please. I don't care.
And of course, it was used in endless adverts.
Yeah.
There was a TV program actually at one point called Whatever You Want. Do you remember that?
Yes, there was, and I used a clip. Plus, it's going out now. It's going out in a couple of weeks' time with Scooter, isn't it?
Well, that's the other thing I was going to ask you. I mean,
he's in the house, you know that? Just thought I'd let you know. Not my house, but he was in somebody's house. I heard him say so.
It's actually billed as Scooter versus Status Quo, isn't it?
Yeah.
And so it is. It's not just they've done a version. You're on it.
Oh yeah.
You're in the video. So tell me about that.
I think they based it on the Run DMC thing with Aerosmith. I like Aerosmith, and it's something based on those lines. We're in on this roof with them somewhere, and this this huge hammer in it with this Union Jack on it. Now I don't think that's going to be very clever in Germany, but I didn't want to tell him. I thought I didn't have the heart. You are German. This is never mind. And this Union Jack goes between us like that and smashes through the wall where they are on this business. And it's just a great thingy on this rooftop shot. And
what does it sound? I mean, does it sound like
it's
whatever
a bit on the
want?
fast side, yeah.
Right.
It's probably where we used to play it a few years ago. So fast, you just go... But it's good. It's something, I can't help it. I'd like to knock it, but it's got such energy and something, and enthusiasm from that guy himself. You have to give him his due, even if I don't think it's my kind of music, blah, 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 blah. It sounds tremendous.
By the time we get into the early 80s, you find yourself as a songwriter and an artist, I think, in a position in your career where clearly you've had so many hits. The temptation is there, I'm sure, just to keep it going. But actually what you do is you go and do something completely left field and actually prove what a good songwriter you are. I'm thinking here of a song called Margarita Time.
Yeah, I love that.
It's a fantastic song, and again, it's not what one would consider to be the obvious Status Quo song.
I'll accept that's more of a song than lots of the others have written, you know, whether it qualifies it because it's 5 or 6 chords or whatever. But I just love that kind of song because it's what I see as kind of country, but it's not. If it was me trying to do country, I mean, I'm trying to do an album now, similar to that. If I bring in pedal steels and all that country stuff, it just sounds ridiculous, you know. To me to be country is I have to be roughly where Margarita was, and I loved Margarita. I think Margarita Time. There's a squeeze going. She unscrews the top of her new whiskey bottle.
Oh, yeah.
Right at the end of that, as it goes into the fade, there's ding-a-ding-a-ding-a-ding-a-ding. I'm sure that's where I nicked it from. That's what it sounds like to me, that I've nicked it from there. But I love Margarita. Wrote it on the piano, loved it to death, still do.
The 80s, of course, is a significant time for the band as well, because after Live Aid, with the exception of yourself and Rick, we now actually find ourselves with a new lineup of Status Quo. And interestingly, it's just at that moment with the new lineup that you release one of your most unusual singles and also one of your most successful, which was In the Army Now.
I love that too.
Well, that was your inspiration, wasn't it? Doing
I
that song?
heard that I was in Ireland with Bernadette's mum, my daughter, and I used to listen to this KC Kaysen every Sunday afternoon, blinding show from America, and this track came on, and I was just stuck. It's my manager, it's ugly, don't move the cameras. And I just could, I thought, wow, listen to that, you know. And I didn't think of myself. I went and said to her, it's going to be a huge thing of it. Nothing, weeks, nothing. And I asked it, and it took yonks to try and get hold of the track, and eventually got hold of the track. And when I took it to everybody in the band, I thought, no. Nobody fancied it. And then there was the split up, and then when we came back, and I was told that stuff I was told, and then Rick and I went up there and I said, well, I want to do In the Army. He said, well, whatever you like, we'll do it. And we did In the Army, and some people really loved it. Some people really, really hated it. To me, and much as I say it's a great song, it's one of the most trickiest songs to do because you never know where you are in it. It's just exactly the same, every phrase. It just goes. No, I find that extremely difficult to do. Get lost regularly.
One of my favourites and a big hit for the band. And the last time I saw you play live, you and Rick were still jumping up and down
Busting
like
Bridges.
Burning Bridges, one of the all-time greats. That's one of your songs, isn't it?
Yeah, Andrew, yeah.
Talk me through that.
I love those shuffles that lean towards those Scottish or Irish reels. There's something so happy about them. And I don't see anything wrong with rock and roll being happy. As much as it can be, I don't see why it can't be happy too. I don't see why people can't have a smile. When I see that audience smile, that freaks me out. I feel a bit of a twit sometimes, but because you were jumping about, I feel a bit of a twit doing that anyway, don't you?
It's a big moment in the show.
Oh,
it's a happy moment.
Lovely. Yeah, I love that. And
what's the song about, though?
The relationship I was in. And
Burning Bridges.
Busting Bridges, yeah. And it's just, I can't sing when we sing it, like, burning bridges, no, mate, not much. I would say we're not much. I don't know why. I can't, it's just, it's an Andrew, when Andrew and I write together, sometimes we sit and go through a lyric. On that one we did bits of the lyric, and I said about the chorus, because the person I was with was always on and off and on again.
In the 90s, there was a little period there where, although you were still making great records, there was a sense that you were having to accommodate a new reality in the music business.
You bet your ass.
I mean, I'm thinking here, for instance, of the Anniversary Waltz, Part 1, which was another #2 hit.
Lovely, but do you know when you use bad language in front of me? Have they told you? Rick and I were kind of relinquishing any sort of responsibility, really, for whatever reason, drinking coke, whatever we were doing, and we left lots of things to David Walker.
Your former manager.
And he came up this idea. He said, like when we said, "What do you think you could? Do you think you could play 3 shows in one day?" We went, probably. What a dickhead thing to say. No, we couldn't. Jesus. And doing the longest record, it's the longest single ever made. What? Is that your idea? And obviously the campaign you get behind it and so on. But again, we are partly guilty in that, because since Rocking All Over the World, the theme that was in Rocking All Over the World, the cover, you took it out on stage, the whole thing, the town. From then on now, every tour has to have a name. We just went out on tour before. Now every tour we do, every year we've got to come up with a name and a title and a theme, and everybody has. So
remarkably successful, though, in the 90s. Maybe it was the right thing for that time.
Yes, possibly. And subsequently doing the covers albums, that seemed to get through the industry. Because I always think it's us, we're in trouble here. Every act does, I believe. But it was, I mentioned Aerosmith. After they had their huge, I Don't Want to Sleep Floor, that one, that Diane Warren song, biggest single they ever had. Fantastic news for them. No, it wasn't. Nearly killed them stone dead off after that. They had to do a covers album. And then I saw McCartney on TV doing this. I think this is ridiculous. A man as great as McCartney, whether you like him or not, his catalogue and what the things he's done. And there he is, reduced to trying to get a bit of airplay, get a bit of notice, because I'll do a covers album then. Will you notice me then? And you have to understand that we're all insecure little show-offs. Otherwise we can't do this shit.
Nevertheless, some of these covers albums that you did were so imaginative that we now find ourselves in a position by 1996 where you're doing a cover version, not just of a Beach Boys song, but you've got the Beach Boys playing on it. That's something you don't see McCartney doing.
No, I agree. We'd met them
talking
somewhere.
about fun.
Yeah, we'd met them somewhere in Berlin. And up until then, really, I sort of knew about the Beach Boys, and I thought they were, we have strange impressions we have about Americans over here, what we think they're like and what they are and who they are. And I thought that about, so we're working. It was us, the Beach Boys, and Charles Aznavour. Now, there's a funny bill. I think Charles was on first, then Beach Boys. It was just weird. And there were 350,000 people at this venue to celebrate the troops leaving Berlin, I think it was.
Right.
And so first time I've ever sat and watched anybody, I'm going to sit and watch the sound check. They were very pleasant people, met them in the hotel the night before. Bruce particularly, really, such enthusiastic people. Watch their sound. It's automatic, you bastards. How can they sound that good? And we got on extremely well with them, and they said, would you want to do this with us? He said, yep. And they just did it, and for a while, we became a 9 or 10 piece band. It was one of the happiest times of my life, touring around with the Beach Boys. We had such a good time. And I don't know why. I have no idea why. We didn't particularly go clubbing or do anything together. We just...
Well, on paper, it's an odd fit, isn't it? But in reality, it worked really well, didn't it?
Well, I really enjoyed myself with them. Really, really enjoyed myself being with them. And I can't understand why. I've got no idea. And I miss Carl. And as soon as he went back, he died. It was like, I just got to know him. Shit. I never thought I'd have that in, such a bunch of... Particularly their kind of music to me was a little bit wimpy, if you like. They always play... Din, 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 we're down here. Play it on the bottom string, not the top string, Nelly. But lovely, lovely voices and stuff. And
by the time we get to 21st century status quo, I think we've gone way past the tail wagging the dog. We've gone back to basics. We've gone back to classic quo. I think in many ways we've come full circle. And I'm thinking here specifically of songs like You'll Come Around, which was just one of the all-time great quo singles.
I do like that. I don't think we did a very good job of that, but I like that. And I think some of it has to be the fact that I got back together with Bob. And I have to give Flapper his David Walker his due, we call him Flapper. that he had said to me, you should get back. I said, I mentioned, should I get? There was problems. I had something going on. He said, yeah, you should. And at the time, because of the friction that had gone on between us, so I'd been sat in the other house with Bob in the front talking about writing and stuff, and something crossed my mind that had been said that he'd said about me, one of those.
Right.
So I said, by the way, what you said about it was true, actually. And he kind of looked at me blank. I thought, oops, a daisy. He said, boy, that's fine. He said, but I didn't say that. I said, what do you mean you didn't say that? He said, well, I didn't say that. Then he said, well, did you say? I said, no, why would I say that? So then we suddenly sat in this room, realised we haven't talked to each other for 20 years for just various things that people had said, he'd said, and neither of us had said it. But at the time, somebody needed to move Bob, be able to rip off Status Quo. You couldn't have ripped off Status Quo if Bob Young was sat there. Just wouldn't be possible.
So You'll Come Around was a song about what goes around comes around, or eventually, hopefully, you'll get back to that good place?
No, I'd like to say it was about that, but it was basically, you'll come round when you're ready. You know what people are in relationships with a woman. You'll come round when you're ready. It's like, you'll come round when you're ready. I'll keep on nice and steady, plodding on. There must be loads of blokes or women that feel that way. It's that you'll come round when you're ready. They just keep plodding on.
And was it a conscious decision, apart from the fact that you were writing with Bob again? Was it a conscious decision to say, this is the real Status Quo?
I suppose there must have been some of that in there, but I don't like to think that, because I don't think that it is what it is. Otherwise, therefore, In the Army and Margarita are not the real Status Quo, then. Yes, they are, I'm afraid, as far as I'm concerned, because I'm one of him. And but there was something we're getting back together with writing with Bob. It was something, I don't know, and it was good. And the material we turned out, we enjoyed the writing together, and I enjoyed doing that.
Okay, well then, let's talk about what's going to be the 75th Status Quo single. The 75th Status Quo single.
Oh.
Which is coming out at Christmas.
That's a surprise, eh?
It's called It's Christmas Time.
Oh, that one. Yeah.
And it's going to sound great on the radio.
It's a great little record. I would have done something slightly different for a Quo Christmas song, but I'd have been wrong, obviously, because I would never do a shuffle as a Status Quo Christmas song. But this one's tremendous. It's so good, it's almost terrible. Well, it has to be a Christmas song. It has to be that ultimately commercial to make it.
Well, it's Christmas. You've got to have the sleigh bells.
You've got to have.
The sleigh bells. You've got to have the turkey. You've got to have the kitchen sink.
I'm the turkey. It's all on there. It's a great little record. It really is a great little record. I didn't really want to make it. Rick wrote it with a guy Wayne in. A Welsh guy who lives in Germany. It was this band that supported us a while back. Really great band, and he wrote the song with Wayne, and it's great. Don't look at me like that. Look at me like this. That's quite nice. I don't mind that look. That's nice.
Francis, thank you very much.
Thank you.